Elon Musk said something that had a lot of people freaking out. At the earnings call, this is what he said. He said, Robotaxi revenue won't be super material this year. But here's the thing. Did you actually expect Robotaxi revenue to be material in 2026? No, I get you, right? Elon himself was the one who set that expectation last year. But ever since Tesla did not hit his stated goal of robotaxis in 50% of the US market before the end of last year, ever since Tesla did not double the number of robotaxis in February or March, like I personally already had much lower expectations and had already expected material impact not until 2027. But so many investors are very frustrated and think that Tesla is yet again delayed. Yes, they are delayed. Let me walk you through everything they actually said on the earnings call that matters. Right off the bat, revenue was up 16% year over year, $22.4 billion. Earnings per share beat, free cash flow turned positive. The stock popped, then fell like a rock when Elon started talking. But that's not why I'm making this video. The real story was in what Elon and Ashok Goswami, the head of Autopilot, said about Robotaxi, Cybercab, and FSC. So here's what I want to do today. I'm going to walk through the quotes, the actual words, not the hot takes, explain what Elon meant by not super material. And we're going to run the math on how many robotaxis actually could be on a road by year end. And we're going to figure out which cities and states those are going into. Because I think if you listen carefully to the call, Tesla basically laid out their whole playbook for the rest of 2026. And almost nobody's doing the math on what it implies. And there's something very interesting and logical that will play out by the end of this exercise. Let's start with a quote. Here's what Elon said. He said, unsupervised FSD or robotaxi revenue would not be super material this year, but it will be material probably in a significant way next year. Now, okay, let's be honest. This is bearish. This is new information. But actually, this is Elon being unusually grounded about a timeline, which frankly is what you want. But let's pay attention to the word he used, super material. He didn't say material, he said super material. That's a big difference. I think material in SEC land is roughly 5% of revenue. Super material is more like segment changing, reshapes the whole P&L. Here's the math. Tesla's annualized auto revenue right now is about $65 billion. So for Robotaxi to be super material, you probably need something north of $2 to $3 billion. For it to be just material, more like 500 million to a billion. Each Robotaxi, when it's operating, it'll generate roughly $30,000 to $60,000 a year in gross revenue at good utilization. That's in the ballpark of what Morgan Stanley and ARK is modeling. So here's what not super material actually would cap out at. If you ended the year with, let's say, 10,000 Robotaxis running, and most of them only ran for part of the year, you're looking at $200 to $400 million in revenue. That's not super material. That's barely material. Even like 15,000 robotaxis with realistic ramp weighting land somewhere around 300 to 500 million. So my honest read, when Elon says not super material, he's telling you the fleet at year end is somewhere under 10,000 unsupervised vehicles. That's my range. That's my guess. Right now, Tesla has 13 unsupervised today in Austin, handful in Dallas and Houston. Scaling from maybe 30 to maybe 7,000 in 8 months is a roughly 200 times increase. That's a massive ramp. But the dollars don't show up this year because most of those vehicles will come online in Q3, Q4. They barely run for half the year. So not super material is Elon telling you we're going to be a huge operational scale by year end, but the revenue from it won't land until 2027. And here's the part, like nobody's quoting. He said material in a significant way next year. That's 2027. That's a company telling you the inflection point is 12 months away. So not 5 years or 10 years, 12 months. That's actually a huge statement. Okay, the next quote, and this one's huge. Elon said Tesla expects to have unsupervised robotaxi operating in a dozen states or more by the end of this year. So let's anchor you. Today, Tesla's doing unsupervised robotaxi in 3 cities, right? Austin, Dallas, and Houston, all in Texas. Plus, they have safety driver operations in the San Francisco Bay Area. Plus, they have active preparations for Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Las Vegas. So they're going from 1 state with unsupervised rides to a dozen in about 8 months. Which states? Let's take a best guess here. Probably, like pretty definite, pretty near certain, it would be Texas, California, Nevada, Arizona, Florida. And then if you base it on the hiring patterns and the regulatory filings, I would add Washington State, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. Then to round out the 12, maybe Georgia, North Carolina, Colorado, or maybe Ohio or Tennessee. In terms of cities, we're probably talking 20 to 30 active city deployments by year end. They already announced ones, right? It's Austin, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Las Vegas, and the Bay Area. And from the hiring data we already covered, add in Jacksonville, Bellevue, Washington, near Washington here, Flushing, New York, Tempe, Henderson, Bridgeville, Doral, Peabody, Marina Del Rey, Palo Alto. That's already 19 cities right there. Push another 5 or 10 cities in the back half of the year, and you're at 25 plus. So here's the quote that really clarified, though, the whole picture for me. Elon has been calling FSD version 14.3 the last piece of the puzzle, and he still is. That's the version running unsupervised in Austin, Dallas, and Houston today. But on the call, he added a really important caveat. He basically said, yes, version 14.3 is good enough for what we're doing right now, but we're not going to do very large scale unsupervised FSD until the new software is in the pipeline. So read that carefully. Very large scale is the key phrase. Because what Tesla is doing right now and plans to do by year end is actually a controlled scale. A dozen states, 20 something cities, a few thousand vehicles. That's a lot, but it's not very large scale. So, in my opinion, and in my best guess, what did he mean by very large scale? I think it's like when he's talking about all 50 states pictured, like hundreds of cities, hundreds of thousands of vehicles. That's where Tesla's saying they need the next software generation. And the next software is version 15, which Elon said is a full architectural overhaul targeted for the end of this year or start of 2027. So the picture is basically this, right? Version 14.3 runs the 2026 rollout, dozen states, 20 cities, under 10,000 cars, is my guess right now. We'll walk you through the numbers later. Controlled expansion. So version 15 runs a 2027 very large scale rollout. That's when you see Tesla go from a dozen states to 30, from 20 cities to 100, from under 10,000 cars to maybe 50,000 plus. This is actually great news because it tells you Tesla has a plan with real software milestones that matches their business expectations. So version 14.3 works for this year. Version 15 unlocks next year. And then the material next year comment and the new software in the pipeline comment are connected. They're the same story. This is my favorite part of the call was when Ashok Goswami, when he said that Tesla's unsupervised fleet has maintained, quote, zero incidents to date. That is reflected in the federal filings. Elon followed up and he said, there has not been a single accident or injury in the unsupervised program to date. Well, think about what that actually means. The unsupervised fleet is small. Yes, it's very small, but it's been running for months now. Thousands of rides, real passengers, real American cities. So zero accidents, zero injuries. This is reflected in the federal filings, meaning NHTSA has the data, meaning this is verifiable, not just a Tesla PR claim. But here's what really jumped out at me. Both Elon and Ashok made a point to say that the limiting factor right now is not safety. So let me say that again. The thing holding Tesla back from scaling faster is not safety. It's operations and scaling issues. And then they gave some really specific examples. Elon literally said the car can get scared to cross a railroad, like a horse that doesn't want to cross a bridge. The system sees the tracks, the change in surface, and it just hesitates. Another example, the car can get stuck at a traffic light if the light never changes from red, which, if you think about it, is exactly what a careful driver would do too. You can't run a red light. But what if the light is broken and you're just sitting there for 20 minutes? A human eventually figures out it's broken, carefully goes around. The car today doesn't quite know how to do that yet. The third example he gave was infinite loops. The car goes to a construction zone, decides it can't proceed, tries another route, then route is also blocked. It comes back to the first one and just keeps looping, which is frustrating for the rider, but honestly, it's not dangerous. It's annoying. That's the word, annoying. And here's the thing about all these examples. They're scaling problems, not safety problems. The car is being too cautious, not too reckless. That's exactly the direction you want a self-driving system to err in. Every one of these can be fixed with better software, with more training data. With version 14 updates and eventually version 15, none of them require a fundamental rethink. Ashok also mentioned something technical that matters a lot. He said the Robotaxi version running in Austin, Dallas, and Houston is essentially a variant of FSE version 14.3. And they're going to keep expanding on the 14.3 base until version 15 drops. So we're not waiting for some magic new version. The software driving these cars right now is good enough to go to a dozen states, good enough that NHTSA sees zero incidents. The work between now and version 15 is basically about teaching the car to stop being so anxious about railroads and red lights. That's a totally different problem from the car can drive safely. Elon made another comment that kind of got buried. He said Cybercab will eventually replace the Model Y fleet as the highest volume vehicle on the network in the near future. Near future, that's the language that he used. So if we tie it all together, if Robotaxi revenue won't be super material in 2026, and super material is north of a couple $1 billion for Tesla's P&L, how many Robotaxis can actually be running by end of year? Here's the estimate. Each operating Robotaxi probably generates somewhere between $30,000 to $60,000 in gross revenue per year at good utilization. Again, that's the ballpark of what Morgan Stanley and ARK had modeled. So the trick is most of these vehicles don't run for the full year. If you end the year with 10,000 Robotaxis, most of those cars came online in Q3 or Q4. So the actual revenue to generate in 2026 is maybe 25 to 40% of their full year run rate. But then you run the math. 10,000 Robotaxis ramping through the year, call it average 5,000 vehicle years of service, at $45,000 per year average revenue per car, it's about $225 million per year. Push it to 15,000 vehicles with similar ramp weighting, still only 350 to 400 million. That's not super material for a $90 billion company. So my best read based on everything they said on the call, the end of 2026, Tesla has about, my best guess, 10,000 unsupervised robotaxis operating across 20 to 25 cities in those 12 or so states. That's a massive jump from today. That's 500 times the 13 unsupervised we have in Austin, but it's still small enough that it won't move the revenue needle, which is exactly what Elon said, right? Not super material. So when he says not super material, he's basically telling you, look, we're going to 10,000 this year. We're going to 50 to 100,000 next year. We're going to hundreds of thousands after that. Each step is roughly 10 times the last. But the 2026 step is small in dollars. It's huge in proof of concept. 2026 is the year Tesla proves it can run a real commercial robotaxi operation at a multi-state scale. 2027 is the year the revenue actually starts mattering. Okay, but wait, there's actually a discrepancy in the math. I want to be honest about that. I told you, Cybercab production, we said we're estimating maybe hitting 15 to 25,000 units by December. But then I also told you Tesla's unsupervised fleet ends the year at maybe 10,000 vehicles. Those numbers don't match. So if they're building 20,000 Cybercabs, why are only 10,000 on the road? So here's the thing. Tesla's not going to intentionally slow down Cybercab production. That for sure we know. That's not how Tesla operates. That's not how any car factory operates. Every day a factory runs below capacity, you're lighting money on fire. Fixed costs keep running. Workers are still on the payroll. The line has to pay for itself. So the whole point of volume production is to get the unit cost down. You don't get there by building fewer cars. So if Tesla's actually going to build 15 to 25,000 Cybercabs this year, either my production number is too high or my deployment number is too low. And I don't think the production number is too high. The drone footage from Giga Texas, the crash testing that we're seeing, the hiring pattern for manufacturing roles, everything points to Tesla wanting to ramp Cybercab fast, which means it's possible, maybe even probable, that there are more unsupervised robotaxis by the end of the year than my under 10,000 estimate. Maybe we end the year at 12,000, maybe 15,000, maybe pushing toward the full production run. This would still match Elon's not super material comment, because even 15,000 robotaxis weighted for ramp is only 400 to 500 million revenue. Still not super material. But in terms of operational scale, that would be 15,000 unsupervised cars on American roads by the end of this year, from 13 today, in 18 months. In 8 months. That's the bullish read. It's the reading that actually squares with Tesla's production plans. So my honest take, the real number is probably somewhere between 8 and 15,000. Higher than I originally said. Lower than the full production number. But either way, it's a massive ramp. Okay, now let's be fair and let's steelman the bear case. 1, 10,000 robotaxis by the end of the year is still a guess. True, we don't know. If regulatory approvals slip in even one state, the number's lower. If the NHTSA investigation turns into a recall, it could be way lower. But look at the leading indicators. There's hiring in 34 cities. There's been 0 incidents. Cybercab production started. Arizona statewide approval. Netherlands approved. All 5 of these had to go right to even get to this point, and all 5 did. 2, material next year is just another Elon timeline. Also fair. He's missed timelines before, a lot of them. But notice the shift in language. He said probably, and he said in a significant way. It's way more hedged than his usual promises, which I think means he's actually being careful, which is rare and probably more credible. 3, Cybercab won't ramp fast enough. Very possible. But the Model 3 ramp went from 0 to about 200,000 units a year in about 18 months after volume production started. Tesla knows how to ramp. Cybercab is architecturally simpler than Model Y. Fewer parts, fewer variants. If anything, Cybercab should ramp faster than Model 3 did. But then you can also argue the opposite. It could ramp much slower because it's a brand new product and a brand new way to build things. 4, Hardware 3 can't do unsupervised. This is the one real big negative from the call. Tesla confirmed roughly 4 million cars on Hardware 3 cannot do unsupervised FSD. Those owners will need to either trade in or hardware upgrade path. Ashok said a version 14 Lite will come to Hardware 3 in late June to give them improved supervised FSD, but unsupervised, Hardware 4 only. That's real. That's a cost for Tesla and a headline risk, but it doesn't affect the Robotaxi rollout. Tesla's own fleet is all Hardware 4 and Cybercab's going forward. Okay, so if you're a Tesla investor, what do you do with this information? Here's how I think about it. The Q1 call was the first time Tesla laid out a clear, grounded picture, not hype, not promises, a real ramp plan. And it told you 3 things. 1, the revenue from Robotaxi in 2026 will be small. Don't bet on it driving the stock this year. 2, scale is real and rolling now. 12 states, 20 plus cities. My best guess is still under 10,000 vehicles. 3, next year is when it actually starts mattering. I think if you're an investor, here's the question. Does the market price Tesla today based on a small 2026 number, or does that look through for the big 2027 number? Right now, as best as I can tell, the stock is pricing a fraction of the 2026 number. The market is still treating Robotaxi like a promise, not a ramp, which means if the ramp hits even halfway to what Elon just described, the re-rating is ahead of us, not behind us. Now, here's what I would actually track going forward. 1, the state count. Today, it's effectively 1 for unsupervised rides. Austin, Dallas, and Houston are all Texas. Watch for state number 2, 3, and 4. When you see unsupervised Robotaxi in a non-Texas state, that's the first real proof of dozen-state rollout. 2, the unsupervised vehicle count. There's 13 in Austin, probably 30 or 40 total across all 3 Texas cities now. At some point in the next month or 2, watch for this number to cross 100, then 500, then 1,000. Each of those is a major milestone. 3, Cybercab production numbers. Q2 earnings in late July will give us the first real number. Any disclosure over 5,000 units is bullish. Over 10,000 is a signal that scale is truly underway. 4, FSD version 15. Elon said end of 2026 or start of 2027, but it's a full architectural rewrite. So whenever version 15 drops, that's a signal the unsupervised rollout accelerates hard. Watch every FSD version cadence between now and then. 5, federal autonomy framework. The DOT is working on it. When it lands, the 12-state rollout becomes a 50-state rollout. That's the ultimate unlock. Look, here's what I keep coming back to. Elon said Robotaxi won't be super material in 2026. People heard that as bad news. I think about it. He didn't say we're behind schedule. He didn't say we can't do it. He didn't say safety is a problem. He said the software is good. The cars are safe. We're going to do a dozen states. Under 10,000 vehicles. It's just that the dollars don't land until next year. And we're not going even bigger until version 50 is in the pipeline. Take it. That's at least a company with a plan. Software milestones lined up with the state count lined up with revenue timing. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. At least it's still on track or it's still on the plan. So thank you very much. I'll be tracking every number from this call for the rest of the year. See you guys next video.